Good morning. Today we are going over packet number 3 that is due on November 7th. Our first word problem is the area of Michael's bedroom is 108 square feet. Its length is 3 feet longer than its width. What are the length and the width? So the first thing we can do is we can draw his bedroom. And we know the area is 108. How do we find the area of a rectangle? Zelda?
Length times width.
The area of a rectangle, you are correct, is length times width. So if we know the area is 108, we need to find the length and the width. So we need to know what two numbers we're going to multiply together to become 108. We need to keep in mind that the length is 3 feet longer than the width. So the length is actually the width plus 3. So we need to find two numbers that are 3 apart from each other. And when we multiply them together, they equal 108. So when I look at it, I always go with numbers that I know, easy numbers. I know my final answer has to be 108. So I'm going to say, okay, 10 times 10 is 100. Okay, I know that that's one of my easy multiplications that I know. But my length and my width can't be the same. They have to be 3 apart. So maybe I'll change it to 13 times 10, because that's 3 apart. But when I multiply that, I get 130. That's too high. So I know I need to go with smaller numbers that are 3 apart from each other. And when I multiply them together, I get 108 as my answer. So when I find what works, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say my width and my length. These are the two numbers. This one's the width, and the length is the one that's 3 bigger. Okay? So let's look at our next page. We have Eli, Marty, Jim, and Ann each own one of the following pets: a hamster, a fish, a dog, or a cat. Eli and Ann are allergic to cats. Neither Eli nor Jim has a fish. Marty has a hamster. Which pet does each person own? One person for one pet. So we have to keep in mind that it says why my answer makes sense. You can't just give an answer and say this is why it makes sense. You have to show how you found that answer. So the easy way to do that is to make a table. So we're going to have Eli, Marty, Jim, and Ann. Then we need our animals. We have the hamster, the fish, the dog, and the cat. And I'm going to mark in here what I know. So I know Eli and Ann are allergic to cats. So Eli and Ann can't have the cat. Right? They're allergic to them. Then I know neither Eli nor Jim has a fish. So I'm going to look under my fish and I say not Eli and not Jim. I know that Marty has the hamster. So that one has to be Marty. Can anyone else have a hamster if Marty has the hamster? No, nobody else can have a hamster, so I'm going to cross off that hamster for everyone else. Now I'm starting to narrow it down. I can look at my table and say, oh, I know what Eli has, right? We can look at that. There's only one animal that Eli can have now. So nobody else can have that. So you're going to fill in your circles and your X's, cross off what nobody can have, circle when we know that it's theirs. And in the end, you're going to say Eli has this animal, Marty has this animal, Jim has this animal, and Ann has this animal. So when we say this is why it makes sense, you're showing me the table, how you found what each person has. So you need to make your table. I got us started with the information they gave us. You're going to finish it with your circles and your X's. Circle what they do have, cross off who cannot have that, And we're gonna narrow it down to come up with the answer. Our next page is our 5-card challenge. So we know we can use those different cards to equal 2. So use different operations, multiplying, dividing, adding, subtracting. We use these cards to make 2 for our answer. Math 6 needs to have 12 points altogether. Next page is our pattern page. So it says, Math 6 is completing the table for the total blocks. So we have to come over here and do all the total blocks. Right? Because we're doing total blocks in the figure. We always have to look to see what our direction is. It's going to be different directions each time. The last packet, we only had to complete the table up to it was like number 7. Okay? This direction is complete the table for the total blocks. Melanie?
If you do the whole table, is that fine?
Oh yeah, you can do the whole table, definitely. But some of us that turned it in early, we're doing this, but that's not what we're doing. We're not doing the table to 7. That was last packet's direction. This packet, you have to have the total blocks column all the way finished. So if we look at that, how many total blocks are there for our first figure? 1. How many for our second figure? How many for our third figure? How many for our fourth figure? So I'm going to look at those numbers, and there's 2 different ways we could figure it out. One way is we could say, to go from 1 to 4, I added 3. To go from 4 to 9, I added 5. To go from 9 to 16, I added 7. What do you think I'm going to add to find figure 5? Why 9?
Oh, well, because they keep on adding 2.
Yeah, we're going up. Plus 3, plus 5, plus 7, plus 9. You can follow that pattern. Anybody else see anything? Do we notice anything with 1, 4, 9, 16? I'm going to give you a hint. These are my favoriteest kind of numbers. We call them perfect squares. So if we look at the 1, I had figure 1. 1 times 1. If I square the number 1, that's 1 times 1, it's 1. If I square the 2, 2 times 2 is 4. If I square the 3, 3 times 3 is 9. If I square my 4, 4 times 4 is 16. So there are 2 different ways that you could do this. You could keep adding up, going up by those odd numbers. Or you could go and say, what's 5 squared? What's 6 squared? What's 7 squared? And do it that way. Either way, you're going to get the same answer. All you have to do is fill that in. If you want to complete the full table, go for it. Okay, that's going to help you pick up on those patterns even more. I love the self-challenges that we give ourselves. All right, next page. The perimeter page. So, in order to find perimeter and area, in order to find that perimeter, we have to find numbers for all of our sides that don't have a number. So make sure you put a number in for every side that a number is missing. You add them all up, and that is your perimeter. Then for our area, we're going to break it up into a square and a rectangle. We know to find the area of that square or rectangle, it is length times width. So length times width, length times width. Put that area here, put that area here. You add the 2 together, and that's your total area. Okay. Next page. Oh, we have to do a net, but this time it's not a rectangular prism. Uh-oh, it is a different shape. This is a triangular prism. So we have to think, just like with that rectangular prism, if we cut on the sides and laid it flat, what would it look like? So now let's think what this would look like. I have one big rectangle on the bottom. I have one big rectangle for a side and another big rectangle on our other side. So if I fold up those three sides, what shape do I have on the ends? Triangles. So I need to make my ends as triangles. So that's our net. Then it says label each side. So I have to think about my side measurements, my edges. So the long part of our rectangle is 14. So every long side of our rectangle is going to be 14. What are the sides of my triangles, Layla? They're all 5. Side, side, and side are all 5. Why do you think they gave us this height here? Why do we need a height? Madison?
For the width. I mean, for the length.
When would we use the height? Think about, we know the area of our rectangle we just talked about is length times width. Oh, I didn't finish labeling. My bad. This side of 5 has to match up with this side of 5. This side that's 5 matches up with this side. This side matches up with this side. And this side matches up with this side. So when we look at our rectangle, we have our length and our width. We're going to multiply those together to get the area of our rectangle. Why do I need the height, Madeline?
Because when you're finding the area of a triangle, you do length times width times height. Right?
That's volume.
Oh.
So the area of a triangle, let's switch colors. Area of a triangle, we do 1/2 length times width. Because when we look at that rectangle, if we cut it in half, it's a triangle. So our formula to find the area of a triangle is going to be half the area of a square. So if we want just half of that square, we're going to find the area of the square, length times width, and we're going to divide it by 2. We're going to make it a half. So instead of calling it length times width, we call it base times height. So we need to find our base and multiply it by the height. So the base is the bottom of the triangle. The height is from the bottom up to the tip. That is our height. So to find the area of our triangle, we would do 1/2 of our base of 5 times the height of 4.3. That is the area for each triangle. So the area of a triangle is half of the base times the height. We say length times width for a rectangle, but it's length times width is the height, okay, and the base. Add all 5 of those areas up, and that's our surface area. Okay, so find the area of your 3 rectangles, find the area of the 2 triangles, add all 5 up for our surface area. Make sure you have your net and it's labeled. And if you do not have it on your paper right now, you can go back to watch the video because I walked us through that full net and labeling it. So I gave you half a point right there. It's your responsibility to get it on your paper. Now, our next page is instead of doing area, we're doing the volume. So we have 1/2 of that base times the height, and then Madeline's right, we want to add in our length. So remember, we have our base and our height, and then the length. So the calculation we're going to perform is our base times our height times our length. So 5 times 4.3, that's a decimal, times 14. So when we do that calculation into our calculator, 5 times 4.3 times 14, that is your volume. Because we multiplied 3 different inches together, we say it's inches cubed. So you have to give me what the number is. 5 times 4.3 times 14, you put that on the line, and then our measurement is inches cubed. Now for math 6, we need to say, what is the sum of the lengths of the edges? We do not want the height added in there, just the edges. So we need to think, each triangle is 5, 5, and 5, so this triangle is going to be 5, 5, and 5. And every long edge of our rectangle is 14. And when it says sum, what operation is that? If we're finding a sum, what math do I have to do? Who remembers? We talked about it, Layla. Not subtracting, that would be the difference. If we're finding a sum, what would we do, Madeline? It is addition. So to find the sum, we are adding all of the edges together. Remember, when we're adding edges, that height is not an edge. So do not add the height, just the edges. That answer you're going to put down here on the line. And it's just going to be inches because we did not multiply anything. So you add all of those sides together, all the sides of the triangles and all the the edges of the triangles, the edges of the rectangle, and tell me how much that is in inches. And then we have our last page. Last page is a mean, median, and mode. So for math 6, we have to find the mean, the median, and the mode of this data. And then if there were no more tests, has the student earned the Euclid? Did they have a mean of 90%? So we actually do have an answer we have to put on this line. We're going to put our mean, our median, and our mode, and then answering the question yes or no. Did they get the Euclid? Did they get 90% on their test? So who remembers how we find the mean? What's the first thing we have to do with our data? Show Mr. Robinson you remember from last year. How do we find the mean? Callie.
You first have to organize all the numbers in place.
Yeah, I have to put my numbers in order from least to greatest. So my smallest number would be that 79%, and then I would have 82%, then I would have 85%. I'm not going to give us the full answer on this because I want you to work it out yourself. So you're going to finish putting it in order. To find the mean, we add all of those up. And we know up here that there were 9 tests given, so we're going to divide that sum by 9. That will give us our mean. Looking at that mean, we could say, if it's lower than 90%, if it's smaller than 90%, they didn't get the Euclid. Or if it's 90% or higher, they did get the Euclid. So you can put that answer right away once you know the mean. How do we find the median? Layla. Median is the middle. Find that middle number. And how do we find the mode? Melanie. The number that appears the most. Okay, so as you're looking at your data, you can fill all that in. Mr. Robinson's so pleased that you guys remembered what mean, median, and mode meant.
I also don't recall ever hearing her talk before, so that's sweet.
Oh, she talks in my class. She likes me better, Mr. Robinson. All right, if you are watching this at home, I hope you are well. I hope to see you soon. If you still have questions on any of these pages, please make sure to check in with me. Have a wonderful day.